Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some new products from Spellbinders. This is their clear stamp and die kit of the month. Gonna be honest with you, I went to link it right before I did the voiceover and I realized that it's actually already sold out, which unfortunately is one of the side effects if you aren't a subscriber to their clubs or kits. But if you are a subscriber and you did happen to get this one, I will show you how to color them. Otherwise, I'll give you some alternatives. I still felt like the plaid, like creating your own plaid paper technique was worth sharing. And so that's what we're doing. So for the first time ever on my channel, we're going to use the chisel tip of the Copic marker or whatever other alcohol ink you have. You could probably do this with other markers, like whatever brand you have, but this is what I know, this is what I chose. So it will be, you need a couple of different colors, depending upon what kind of plaid you want to make. You need a T-square ruler, and you don't need it, but it is extraordinarily helpful to have some sort of grid mat. My glass mat has a grid on it, and so I am using that to create my plaid. I went in first and did the first couple of lines at the top, and now that those are done, I am going to tape that in place, and this is going to make, it's just going to expedite things. It makes it so much easier. So with a T-square ruler, it lines up to keep a straight edge on the edge of your paper, but then there's like a notch right above the ruler part where your pencil or marker or whatever you're using will fit in, so that you can actually kind of start off the page and then bring it on to the page. So that little guide at the side doesn't impede the line that you're making. Now, you do have to make sure that it stays lined up, and that does get more challenging as you get closer to the bottom of the paper. And one of my lines did get a little wonky there because I didn't realize it wasn't lined up. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I wasn't too stressed about it. But so here what I've done is I've just gone a 1/2 inch, which on my glass mat is 2 blocks. And now, because I want to create a smaller check, the smaller the check you want, the closer your lines need to be together. So once I have gone through and I've done the 1/2 inch, now I'm going back in and it's every 1/4 of an inch. I just find it's easier for me to get good lines if I do the wider ones first and then go back in and fill in between. I'm also not super worried about my edges because I know that I'm going to be trimming my papers down. But if you want to have a full A2 size card, then, you know, you can go all the way down to the edges. I have found that when I first bring the marker on the paper, sometimes I get a little bit of bleeding. So if you want a full-sized card front, I would recommend making your paper just a little bit bigger so that you can trim it down to an A2 size. So now, once I, again, have gone through and I've marked them all at a 1/2 inch, I'm going to go back in and do the 1/4 of an inch, and this is going to give me a very small check that is one solid color. The reason that I'm doing this, this is like pseudo story time. The reason that I am showing you how to do this is because I am not a pattern paper person. We have to go back to the technique. So in between each one, in between each color, you want to make sure you're cleaning off your ruler. Because you're pressing right up against the side of that ruler, you will transfer ink. And then when you try to go in with your next color, you risk picking that color of ink up and then, you know, transferring it onto your paper. For this one, I'm going for a medium kind of check. So again, or a medium plaid, if you will. Again, I'm getting that line up at the top, then I will move my tape. And then this one, I did the blue lines every inch. And then for this one, we're also going to bring in more colors. This one really reminds me of my grandfather. So my papa worked very hard for a living, and when he retired, he was still very much an early morning man, and he didn't care who was there when he went to bed. He would put his jams on, nighty night, he'd shut the door to the hallway, and he'd be off to bed. It didn't matter if we were there visiting or not. But he also was a man who took great pride in his appearance. So even though he was retired, he still got up early. He still would comb and do his hair, and he would still get dressed for the day, typically in a pair of slacks and a button down. The button downs were almost always plaid. And so this particular check reminds me very much of the shirts that he used to wear, which is kind of like a warm, fuzzy kind of reminder of my grandfather. So now, adding in my next color, instead of going every inch, I'm going to go every 3/4 of an inch. So each time my pink line will be in front of my blue line by just 1/4 of an inch. Now you may see that I am going back and forth over these lines quite a bit. That's because I never use the chisel end. All of my ink is like pooled on the brush side. And that doesn't mean that you can't work the ink back there. Obviously you can. So I did refill my markers before I started. And then I just kind of had to work the ink down into that end of it to kind of saturate my chisel nib. But then once I had done it, I think after this first one, actually, I didn't have any issues with the next one. The ink had successfully pooled down there and wasn't going on super light or patchy. So then the next color we will do will be the yellow. I just went with quasi primary colors. I left out the red. I used the blue and the yellow because I wanted them to be springtime colors. But anywho, so I think pattern paper is very pretty, but I don't use a lot of it. I don't like busy patterns. I like much cleaner looks to my cards. And so I have found over the years that me purchasing an entire paper pack is just a waste of my money because I'm not going to use it. And so I have accumulated some over the years that were just like so pretty I couldn't not get them, or some that companies have sent me because it was part of their release. But I have found that come springtime, I usually do enjoy a plaid, a gingham, something along those lines, a polka dot. And so rather than spend the money and buy a new paper pad for just a couple of cards I would want to make with plaid paper, I decided to just make my own. And then now here I am sharing it with you. So that way, if you just need like this one piece for this one card because it would look so cute, you could make your own as well. So now here for the yellow, I am going every 1/2 inch again. So that is like... each time I moved it 1/4 of an inch. I hope that makes sense. And then I'm doing them vertically as well as horizontally to create that plaid. Every plaid is different, and this is a technique you could have a ton of fun kind of playing around with. You could only add the color vertically, for like maybe the yellow, just to add in a couple of vertical yellow stripes and leave off the horizontal ones, just to add in like a pop of color. The other one that I did, this one requires a little bit more finesse, just a little bit. So it's a large plaid, but it's at a diagonal. And because it's at a diagonal, I can't really use my grid mat or my T-square ruler to help me out. So what I'm doing is I just used the ruler. The ruler itself was my guide, the body of it. So for the first portion of it, the blue, I am just doing one line on either side of it. Again, I knew I was trimming these down, so I didn't take the time to fill in the entirety of the cardstock. But if you wanted it to be a full panel, then you would just continue moving the ruler each side. And the ruler for this one is about 1 inch wide. So I did my lines on either side of my ruler to start to create my kind of diagonal plaid. For the pink, when I went in there, because I don't have a line or a box to follow, what I did was I lined up the base of the little tick marks for the 1/2 inch on my blue line, and I made sure all of those were even, and then I put my line down. So I used basically the numbers that are printed on the ruler as a guideline for whether or not my line was straight. And then I'm going to do the same thing. One side is inches, one side is centimeters, but they're printed the same way. And so I will line up my numbers on my blue line, and then I will go ahead and put in my pink line. So, yeah, I have purchased those things in the past, and I used to take classes at Archivers. I don't even think they're open anymore. I think they closed. Well, they might be in other places. I know they closed the ones around here a long time ago, but they used to do classes, and I would go take them with my sisters and my girlfriends, just to, not because it was necessarily my style, but just because it was fun to go, make with people. And a lot of times they would do like pattern paper classes or paper pack classes. And then I would end up with all of this like leftover pattern paper, and I would never do anything with it because it just wasn't my style, which is okay. Everybody is different. If you love pattern paper, there's videos all over YouTube with how to, make 12 cards with just one, pack of paper, which are super helpful for people who are into that. But if you're like me and you don't necessarily always use the pattern paper, but you just want like a little spring print, this maybe is for you. So let's talk about the Spellbinders thing. So yeah, if you subscribe to the kit, you're guaranteed to get one. But if you don't, when they're sold out off the shelves, they're sold out off the shelves. And the Spellbinders kits are a really good deal. So for this one, see, I keep trying to talk to you about other things. But so here, I like the blue check, but I really wanted them to be consistent with the same colors. So you can do it with one color like I showed you, or if you change your mind like I did, you can go back in and add other colors. So here I am just skipping a line. So there's one empty line in between each yellow line, and I will then go back in and fill that in with pink. And this is going to be a much busier pattern. But again, we have that smaller check. So with that smaller check, there's more of the paper that is filled with the lines. That's all. So it just depends on the style of card you're creating and what kind of look that you're going for, which of the plaids will be for you. And like I said, you certainly can play around with this. There's a million and one different ways to make a plaid. This is just kind of a jumping off point to give you something, something to start working with, and then, take it wherever you want to take it. That's supposed to be the point of inspiration, is for, for maybe you to find something that you're passionate about, and then you put your own spin on it. So, what was I talking about? Oh, the kits. So yes, so that kit is sold out, which is sad. It was a super, super, super cute kit. And I'm still gonna, like I said, put the video out there because you don't need that kit to make these cards. You can use other Easter cards. So here we have the small, we have the medium, we have the large plaid, and then we're going to move on to the stamping and the coloring. I am coloring with Copic markers, so I am stamping in alcohol safe ink. And I decided, because I had so much going on in my backgrounds, that I stuck to pretty much the same colors with the addition of green. I stuck to the same colors, and I used my grays to color my bunnies white. And I also used white as my matte for the, well, you'll see when we get there, when we're building the card. I used a white matte. So let's talk about some other options that you could use that are super cute for Easter that are not this particular kit. Though I will tell you that Spellbinders, their clearance sale is always being updated, and it's like 12 pages of stuff, and they do sell their older kits there. So like last year's Easter kit is on sale there, and let's say, for example, you really loved the what are we gonna say? Like you super loved the kit from, like the small die kit, from last year, March of last year. Well, normally that kit would have been $27 at the time, but now it's on sale for $13.50. Same thing with like the large die. Normally one of those kits would be like $40, and they're on sale for like $13 or something like that. So if you are a big fan of the Spellbinders type style, I would definitely recommend going over and checking out the sale. Now, Honeybee has a super cute one that's Easter bunnies. That is bunnies and eggs. It's just on a little bit of a smaller scale. These are more cartoony, less realistic. Hero Arts has one that's a color layering bunny that is definitely more realistic, and you can choose to stamp the outline or the outline and its layer. Anita Duram has one with Colorado Crafts that's adorable, you know, in her style of bunnies. If you like the bunnies like this, where they're somewhere in between very realistic and super cute, you may want to look at like Picket Fence. They have a really adorable one. It isn't bunnies, but it's called Extra Special, and it's like Easter eggs in a nest. And then there's this trend that must have been popular last year. I must have missed it. I don't know. They're super cute, for bunny gnomes. And so My Favorite Things has those, which their sale is still going on through the 10th. So they have their little spring gnome bunny for $10.79. And then Trinity Stamps has a super cute gnome bunny stamp set with lots of different eggs. So just some options for you. I will link them below, but you really can use these plaids for any sort of spring kind of card that you have, just because, you know, it's a pretty neutral pattern. These would also be, like, the plaids would be great for, you know, Father's Day will be coming up in the next couple of months, and these would be great to put on a, you know, Father's Day card or a more traditional masculine card. So yeah, so just some options there. For the coloring, I did all of the bunnies in white, like I told you, and so with that, you're just adding the shadows. You're leaving the majority of the bunny white, and they do look gray, I know that, but as we add more color, they will not. And then I gave them a little pink ear and a pink cheek. You guys saw that already. For the blues, for all the colors, really, I made them a little bit bolder. It still contains the color I did my plaid with, but in order to get the depth and the shading that I like in my coloring, I did have to add darker colors. So for these flowers, as well as the flowers that are with the little bunny in the pocket, oh, if you like the little bunny in the pocket, Honeybee has a cute little pocket die. But you want to add shading where those petals are meeting the base of the flower. For this little bunny who's tucked into the egg, he's a little bit darker because he's tucked into something. I also use those same gray markers to add some shading around the egg to give it a white appearance. And again, we are just adding the shadows. So we're leaving the majority of this egg white. We're just trying to give it a little bit of shape by adding the shadows. One of the other things that you may have noticed in this video is normally I go lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, and for some of this I started with my darkest color, which is pretty abnormal for me. However, sometimes when you have areas that are a little bit smaller, especially like the details on this little egg, it's very easy to get that area oversaturated with ink, and then you can have issues with it kind of bleeding out. So in order to avoid that happening, sometimes it is better to start with your darkest color and just put in very little shadows, and then go back over with your medium and your light tones. Here for these little tulips, as well as for the little, what would you call that? Swag? Half wreath? Floral half wreath? I'm not really sure. The flowers that are in that top left-hand corner right now, I use the same greens for both of those. This is not a color we used in the plaid, but because we laid the yellow on top of the blue, it obviously, color wheel, yellow and blue make green. So we do have some of those kind of green tones that are already in our plaid. So these will play nicely together as well. And here, because they are a little bit bigger, I didn't have any issue doing my normal coloring style, lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, because I had a little bit more real estate to work with. But that isn't always the case, and so don't feel like you're doing something wrong if you start with your darkest marker. Here, this is me bringing in a sketch marker that's pretty much the same color because, again, I was too lazy to fill my Copic marker. So for these flowers, I decided to do them all pink. And I did the shading the same way, just adding a little bit of dimension out from the center of the flower, and then my mid-tone, and then my lightest. Just make sure you are reserving some white area so that you do have a highlight. Otherwise, you're going to lose your dimension and your image is going to be flat. So today, your girl is a tired girl. Ladies and gents, it's a tired day. So I told you yesterday we took Caitlin for her checkup, which also means that she got her vaccinations. And I'm not sure if she's in a growth spurt or if it's the vaccine. She must be, because we had another night 3 nights ago. I think it was Sunday night, honestly, that she was up, and she was just up for like 2 hours. And then last night, I don't know what it is about midnight. I do not know what it is about midnight. But if that baby is going to get up, it is going to be at midnight. She's always restless around that time. So I was supposed to take her. Eric and I try to split it up so that, one person isn't always taking or one person isn't always picking up. And so I was going to take her to daycare in the morning. However, on the nights that she gets up in the middle of the night, I always make my husband the offer because I know I'm more of a night owl. Back to the card. So here, the 2 dies on the right, those are included in the kit. This one, for some reason, does not have a die. I don't know why. So I just used a Spellbinder circle die to cut that one out, and that was fine. So at this point, I've trimmed down all of my plaids. I know kind of what my layouts are going to be. And then I am selecting which bunny is going to go with which background. For a lot of these, I felt like the background was too busy. The only one I didn't is where I had the larger plaid. I felt like that one was okay because there wasn't too much detail in the image and there wasn't too much detail in the background. So the other 2, I am going to create mats, which will give me a little bit of grounding, a little bit of a buffer in between the image that I want to be the focal point and the pattern that I want to be a supporting actor, but I don't want it to steal the show. So here I'm just stamping down sentiments, and then I will die cut these out with the coordinating dies before we start building. So anywho, I always make him the offer because I am more of a night owl than he is. And so when she got up, I got up, got her, her pacifier or whatever. She seemed to kind of settle back down. I went back to the bedroom. Then maybe 1 minute later, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, she was back up again. So Eric got up with her. He was trying to, soothe her or whatever. Does a couple of minutes of that. Eventually he ends up picking her up and rocking her in the chair. And he sends me a text message that says, "Do you think she needs some Tylenol?" Now, I had given her some Tylenol earlier because of her vaccinations. And I was like, she might be, like she just feels icky, or maybe her legs are sore, from where she got her shots, or she's teething or whatever. And I said, is she awake, or is she trying to go back to sleep? And he is like, nah, she's awake. So I go into the bedroom. I tell him, I will make you the same offer that I always do. Do you want to stay up with her, or would you rather take her in the morning? Because I'm not staying up with her and then getting up extra early to take her in the morning. Like, that's not right. And he was like, well, I feel bad because you always stay up with her, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, just tell me what you want to do. Like, somebody has to do it. And he was like, yeah, I'll take her in the morning. It's totally fine. So she and I go downstairs. I've already loaded up the Tylenol. I give that to her. I make her some oatmeal. She does not want any oatmeal. I make her a piece of toast. She does not want any toast. And then in the middle of that, do you know what happens to me? It's the worst thing ever that could possibly happen to you when your child is up in the middle of the night. My internet goes out. So I have no Disney Plus. None. Now, they tell you when your child gets up in the middle of the night, don't let them walk around, don't let them play, don't, try to keep it super low key, low light, lay around, just snuggle, that whole deal. But now I have no way to keep her occupied. So now she just wants to play like a crazy person. But she's super tired. So I was like, this is like the worst thing ever. Like, why? Where is the power? So, of course, I get on my phone. I'm looking. I'm trying to figure it out. It's scheduled maintenance. It is scheduled maintenance. It's on purpose. They've done it to me on purpose. And I am not a happy camper. But nonetheless, we tried to make the best of it. Eventually, it did come back on. By that point, we watched maybe 20 more minutes of Frozen, and then she was rubbing her eyes quite a bit. So we came back upstairs, and she just had a hard time falling back asleep. And I shouldn't say that. Maybe she was asleep, but she was just super restless. But like she just kept like rolling around, and then she'd wake up for a second and she'd cry for just like, and then be back asleep. But by this time, it's like 2:00 in the morning. And I was like, I cannot keep my eyes open any longer. Like if she is not asleep, she's on her own because I cannot stay awake any longer. So thankfully, when I got into bed at about 10 after 2, she did seem to finally have settled and was asleep. And then, Eric said she was a rock this morning. Of course she was, because she was exhausted because she was up in the middle of the night. But that doesn't change the fact that, like, I still got to get up and get the other child to school and all of that. So it's just a tired, kind of sleepy day. We got parent-teacher conferences tonight. So that's going to be a little bit hectic because we're going to have to take Caitlin over to my parents just for 45 minutes so we can go to our parent-teacher conference for Peanut. But hopefully she sleeps through the night tonight. Hopefully. Pray, please, Lord, please. So, so you saw me put together all the cards. I put some shimmers on them. I'm going in now with my white gel pen and adding some details. I added some dots to the flowers. I added some white stitching to that little pocket. And then I added some they're already there, the highlights in their eyes. I just kind of bolstered them up a little bit. And then that is it. That is all 3 cards. So I hope that you learned a little bit about how to make your own plaid, how to make your own spring kind of patterns. I hope that is helpful to you. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.